is posted in the school building, the entrance doors at the Education Service Center, and at the West Bend Community Memorial Library. Copy was also sent to the Daily News, WBKV, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. Deb, can you confirm that this meeting was properly posted?
Meeting was properly posted.
Thank you. We have all 7 board members here tonight, so we'll recognize a quorum tonight. Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a pretty full agenda tonight. Hopefully, board members have had a chance to look at their board packet and materials. And take a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the agenda tonight? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We've got a recognition tonight of a West athlete. I'll have our principal and athletic directors come do that.
All right, so I'm Erin Felber. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the West Athletic Director, and I'm super excited to be here to honor Lauren Craig, who is one of our golfers, a student from West Bend West. She went to the state tournament, and she got 45th out of 78 golfers. She was awarded second team all-conference and made it to state by winning in a playoff at sectionals with a personal best of 83. At state, Lauren shot 92 and 87. Lauren is accompanied by her parents and coaches tonight, and I would like to take a moment to share with you what head coach Andrea Rodenkirk and JV coach Susie Hartfield had to say about Lauren. Lauren is an excellent student, top of her class. She works super hard and is very determined when it comes to reaching her goals. Lauren is extremely dedicated. She would stay after practice to get extra help and would play consistently on the weekend. A true athlete and competitor, she truly has a love for the game of golf. In 30 plus years of professionally teaching golf, I have seldom run across an individual more level-headed when playing the game. I have never met a teenage girl absolutely committed to and concerned about bolstering her teammates' morales, and I've even had another coach say, "It's impossible how someone without much leverage," yes, he meant under 5 feet tall, could drive the ball that far. Lauren has every quality and life skill we should all celebrate. When Lauren is not spending her time on the golf course, she is co-president of Mock Trial, treasurer of National Honor Society, principal viola of the high school chamber orchestra, AP scholar with distinction awarded to students who average a minimum of 3.5 on all their AP exams and score 3 or more on at least 5 of these exams. As a sophomore, she completed her first college class at UWWC. She has been accepted into the College of Science of Engineering to study biomedical engineering at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. Lauren also volunteers at McLean Elementary School, helping her first grade teacher. And on a lighter note, she is a certified scuba diver. As the West Bend West Athletic Director, I want you to know how proud I am of you and all your accomplishments. Great job representing the Spartans. And please join me in giving Lauren a round of applause. Just came in today, Lauren, so congratulations. Good job.
Great job, Lauren. We're very impressed. Thank you for representing us, not just in sports, but also all your academic achievements. Very impressive. Thank you.
Congratulations. We've come to the public participation portion of our agenda. Board Policy 187 prescribes the nature and procedures for this segment. I will summarize the policy at this time, but copies of the policy are available in the back of the room, and I urge you to familiarize yourself with the policy in its entirety. Residents of the district, parents of children in district schools, and employees of the district may participate. Participants desiring to address the board should obtain and complete a participant comment card near the entry and turn it over to me prior to the meeting or before you step up to the podium. Participants may comment concerning an agenda item or non-agenda item. Each participant will be called to the podium and given 3 minutes to speak. The participant must state his or her name, address, and relation to the district, and this information will appear in the minutes of the meeting. The board will not engage in debate concerning the remarks or take immediate action. The board may refer the matter to the superintendent, a committee, or take the remarks into consideration in future action. All right, we'll start with, I want to say this right, is it Halia Evans? Julia Evans.
Yeah.
Julia Evans. All right, buddy, come on.
Hello, my name is Julia Evans. I live at 1120 South 7th Avenue. I'm a student of the West Bend School District. I'm a senior at West Bend West, and yeah. But anyway, I'm a senior at the high school. This is my 10th year in the district. I teach at Legacy Martial Arts just down the road. I teach a kids self-defense class there. And I'm also involved in our school's new multicultural club led by my mom sitting right over here. And I'm also a part of SEED and SAGA at our high school. So tonight I'll be talking about the 2019-2020 school calendar. And we were wanting to, us as a part of the multicultural club, and many other students in the district wanted to talk about getting Martin Luther King Day recognized in the district. Currently it is not today. I think this year it's taken off as a teacher workday, I believe, and teachers still have to come to school. But I believe since some of the surrounding school districts do have off, and their students and staff both have off, and it is recognized, we should have it too. As well as the fact that Martin Luther King did amazing things for this country all around the world, and it is a nationally celebrated holiday. We should also recognize it here. He fought for freedom of black people and anyone else in this country, and I think that since that's a founding district or a founding component of America, since we did want to get freedom, we should also recognize that here. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thanks for coming. To
Superintendent Kirkegaard, I assume you'll be addressing that during the calendar then?
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm going to call up Mary Louise Hildebrandt, who also has a comment on the calendar.
Hello, I'm Mary Louise Hildebrandt. I'm a citizen of the West Bend area, and I live at 5463 Village Drive. I have come on the matter of the calendar as well, and for the same reason. I see citizenship as very important as you prepare students for college readiness and student success as career in their careers. And Martin Luther King was a person who bridged divides. He was a person who believed in service to others and helping folks out who are having difficulties being included, or poverty issues, or any kind of injustice issues. When we pledge allegiance to the flag, we pledge to our republic that is one republic, is unified, and we've had so many divides in our nation lately. I think it's important to prepare kids to understand that we need to work together, and we are all in this together, and it would be a great way to prepare our students by having that recognized as an important day for not only celebrating Martin Luther King, but doing service for the community. It could be a character building event for kindergarten through 12th grade. Say what they've done. And it's a wonderful thing for students' character and for us all to keep that in mind. So with that, I ask that you consider recognizing Martin Luther King Day as an official holiday for the West Bend School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally Weir.
My name is Sally Hoyer, and I live at 1840 Park Avenue in West Bend. I'm a teacher at West Bend West, and I'm speaking tonight as a member of the executive board of the WBEA. The WBEA asks that the district pay its veteran teachers, like many that you see here, standing and sitting, the stipends that they earned for their work during the 2017-18 school year. So far, the district has refused to do so. Although the district has promised a new teacher compensation plan, this has not happened yet. which means teachers are still operating under the same plan as in years past. This plan states that a stipend is paid to veteran teachers for successfully completing the tasks on the teacher scorecard. At no point have veteran teachers been told that the district is no longer honoring this part of the plan. The district continues to follow other parts of the compensation plan, leading teachers to believe that it is still being enforced. If other parts of the plan are still being honored, why would the district choose to ignore the part which calls for compensating veteran teachers for their work within the plan? Veteran teachers work hard throughout the year, trusting that if they completed the steps in this compensation plan, they would indeed earn their stipend. We've done our 15 hours of professional development as required by the scorecards, sacrificing time with our families and foregoing other obligations in our personal lives to make sure that we held up our end of the deal. Now it's time for the district to uphold its end. But instead, there are claims there's not enough money to pay these stipends. How can the district have enough money to add brand new positions to its district staff, but not have enough to pay its veteran teachers the stipends that they've earned during the 2017-18 school year? It seems that securing the pay and benefits of current employees supersedes adding additional employees to the payroll. Choosing not to pay these stipends, coupled with the new cuts in benefits this year, means most veteran teachers will earn less take-home pay for this year than they did the year before, continuing the trend of decreasing take-home pay for veteran teachers in our district. This sends the message to all teachers that experience is not valued here and leaves veteran teachers wondering if we can afford to stay. To avoid this message, the WBEA recommends that the district honor the work and commitment of our veteran teachers by paying them the stipends that we all earned last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. And now, Dan Leonard.
Hi, my name is Dan Leonard. I live at West 198 North 16864 Ridgeway Drive in Jackson. My relationship to the district would be taxpayer. I'm here regarding the proposed new Jackson Elementary School. And I'm a property owner and a taxpayer, like I said, in Jackson. I was a student in the West Bend School District 15 plus years ago. And I've been attending Village of Jackson board meetings regularly for this whole year. I've been living in Jackson 20 plus years, and I now take my kids to play at the Jackson School Park. And while they're playing, I walk around the school, and because memories, I went to Jackson Elementary, and I look at it, and I guess I'm here to ask exactly what constitutes a new school. I've just heard that we need a new school. I'm here, like, why? And not to point anyone out, but during the village meetings, I've heard some curious claims by the president and the superintendent. One thing I heard was that the current Jackson Elementary building has outgrown its usefulness. My question would be how so? Just need reasons, like, is it beyond repair? How did it get beyond repair? I work in service. I do heating and cooling now, but I've been in most of all the trades at one point or another. About the money side, the other claim was this is referring to the high school improvements, since it's kind of all in this, raising taxes for improvements. The president said that no improvements were being done to the high school. Context would be like if a piece of tile was broken, they don't improve the whole floor, they just fix that problem area. And then I would ask, why wouldn't we be improving as things come up? Obviously, we'd have to use our heads and not redo the whole floor only to come back and say, hey, we need new drains. That'd be kind of silly. Badger comes to mind. They didn't level at all, but why do we let our buildings get so bad that it's better to just level them than to maintain them. Again, I would ask what's wrong with Jackson Elementary. I know it has some poor windows on the Jackson Drive side, but around back are all newer windows, good condition. The brick all looks good. Land has potential, great potential actually. Location for a school in Jackson is better than perfect.
And we've come to 3 minutes here. You want to kind of wrap it up for us?
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would just, Jackson is waiting for the school district to decide on, because where they want to put the new, or where you guys want to put the new building is where their public safety building is. And then if you guys take that, that leaves Jackson to figure out where to put their police and fire, and they want to upgrade their police and fire, and that's a nice centralized location. If the school takes that, what happens to the current land that it's on? Probably residential. What happens to the historical part of the school? I'll end it there.
Very good. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I guess this is for Deb or Superintendent Kierkegaard. Can we be assured that, Mr. Leonard receives the copies of information that we received from the architects and some of the detailed planning that they went through, and they can specifically point out some of the end-of-life usefulness going on in Jackson, et cetera? Thank you.
All right, we've come to our consent agenda. We have minutes from October 8th, regular board meeting, disbursements posted to October 29th of 2018, early college credit and Start College Now requests for the second semester, and the Head Start monthly report. Any questions on the consent agenda? If not, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action items tonight. We'll start with revenues and expenses in the aggregate, July through September of 2018. Aaron's going to come and talk about that.
So the revenues and expenses in the aggregate were in the board documents. As you'll see, it's important to note that you have to understand the revenue flows in order to understand how we get the revenue in and how it compares to the budget. So local property taxes are settled and available to the school districts on the 20th of January, February, and August. And that's per Wisconsin statute. Federal funds are per the AIDS register and largely available upon claim reimbursement. And then there's state aids, which is also in the document, the schedule for the state aids. So going through the aggregate revenues, we're on track. We're at 27.1% of local revenue, and that was our August property tax payments that had come in. Debt payments, or debt revenue, you'll see is 0, and that is per the debt schedules. Everything else is really in line. When you look at the expenses, insurances, so the premium payments are not monthly, so that's why those look at 53.7%. And dues and fees are 53.1% because that's the annual administrator dues, and those are paid upfront, not spread throughout the year. The non-referendum debt, Fund 38, 39.8%, that's per the debt schedule. So we have large payments, typically at September 15th. And then the facility maintenance is at 90.8%, and that's because most of the work is done over the summer when the school is not in session, for example, the roofing projects. So any questions on the aggregate expenses and revenues?
Just a quick comment. What we would like to do is quarterly do it as a full report, just like tonight. We will put it on the consent agenda for the other months. So you'll have, in November, there'll be an aggregate as well. In December, there'll be one as well. And then in January, we'll have another opportunity for a full report. So if you have any questions, kind of go from there. But we'll do it monthly but for 2 of the 3 months, it'll be just on the consent agenda. And if there's any questions at all, and you would like us to pull something out of the consent agenda, we certainly can do that. And then the quarterly one, we'll do an actual report like tonight.
And of course, you can get the detail at any time, you know, I can provide you the detail.
Any further questions, discussion? I move to approve the revenues and expenses in the aggregate for July through September of 2018.
Second.
Motion and a second by Chris. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Karen. The next action item is the elimination of a technical math course at the high school beginning in the 1920 school year. And as Jennifer Martin comes up, I know this is something we talked about with some of our math teachers at our last board meeting, and now we're here to vote on it tonight.
Correct. So are there any questions about the elimination of the technical math course for next school year?
If not, I move to approve the deletion of the technical math course offered at the West Bend East and West High Schools for the 2019-2020 school year forward.
Motion and a second by Nancy and Ken. Any discussions, questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Addition of 4 high school courses beginning in the 1920 school year.
Last board meeting as well, there were math teachers and then the English teachers who were here to discuss the Intro to Algebra 2 math course and the contextual English classes, contextual English 9, 10, and 11. You will notice one change. They were brought forward last time as contextual English 9, 10, and 11, and they are now listed as 1, 2, and 3. And that is to align them with the sequencing of the English courses currently offered at the high school so that it's relative to the sequence, not the grade level that they would probably take those classes in. In addition, I know there was an inquiry last time about whether these courses were NCAA approved or eligible, and I spoke with Matt Coyle, one of the counselors at the high school, and once the courses are approved, there's a process where he enters the information and gets, an NCAA looks at the courses and decides whether they would be eligible or not.
Okay. Any questions?
I guess I would just offer a comment because the Intro to Algebra math class is basically designed for students who might be performing perhaps below benchmark. It's the level of it, would you say?
Not below benchmark, but maybe not quite ready for that advanced algebra class. They may need a step in between. Okay. So they may it's not for students who would have failed the geometry or the algebra class, but that they may need a little extra support before they're ready for the advanced algebra class.
And so it just calls to mind, multiple times we've heard from parents and students that the CPM math program, that when kids move from 8th grade to 9th grade, they're moving, some of them, from an advanced algebra, getting credit for high school, into a 9th grade regular geometry. And if we could also look at appealing to those kids who are moving at a faster level or performing above benchmarks, that an honors geometry might be something worth bringing back. It was here 3 years ago. We eliminated it, just to put it on your radar, kind of, and kind of field feedback from parents with that CPM program. And
the algebra that is offered at 8th grade is the same algebra that is offered at the high school. So it is the CPM algebra. So
right.
it is the same sequence. So, and many of our students who take the technical math are doing so because they're not ready to move from geometry into advanced algebra currently. So they have been making that step into the technical math. So this is replacing a course that's already a step for those students at this point.
And my point is we might want to think about adding an additional math called honors geometry in 9th grade, so that when kids move from 8th to 9th grade, they're not in a class with 9th through 12th graders. Instead, they're in a class with maybe kids who are performing at a slightly more advanced level, and it's 9th and 10th instead of that whole continuum.
I guess for the sake of this, how many students do you anticipate, like how many sections do you think we'd have of this? Any idea?
Currently we have, I think, 2, 3. We've got like 7. Currently we have 7 sections of technical math
Wow.
this year. So
And what ages are we talking about? I mean, is that 9th through 12th, or that wouldn't be through
No,
12th?
Yeah, no, it's usually 10th and 11th grade for the most part. And the majority of them are not taking it for MPTC credit. They're taking it to meet that third math requirement because they need that math requirement, and they're just not ready for the advanced algebra.
Got it. Thank you.
Any more discussion? If not, Chris, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion, and I'm assuming that we can do these at the same time. I move to approve the addition of the Intro to Algebra 2 math course and the addition of contextual, we talked about English already? Yeah, we did. Contextual English 1, Contextual English 2, and Contextual English 3 courses at the West Bend East and West Bend West High Schools beginning in the 2019-20 school year.
Second, and I'm glad you had to say contextual 3 times, not me.
Motion by Chris and a second by Nancy. Any further discussion or questions on this? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The 2019-2020 school year calendar. Jen Ginnerman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jen Gennerman. I'm the Director of Continuous Improvement and Assessment. Last year I started in the district, and I was able to work with Laura and several of you on the calendar committee. Here with me is Angie Boris, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the calendar committee work itself, and then I'll talk about the calendar, and Don will jump in as well.
Thank you. My name is Angie Borst, and I am the school counselor at Jackson Elementary. Just a couple quick points. That calendar was developed in a collaborative way with a large cross-section of professionals in the district, and it was over several meeting sessions. Many factors were considered as a part of a very thoughtful process. It's a hard thing to do, to try and put together the calendar. I had never been on a calendar committee before, so I didn't know just how hard it was. Student learning, our community values, and as well as teacher opportunities for collaboration are the result of this calendar.
And when the calendar committee ended last year, we took one calendar to the board that was approved this calendar year. At that time, we had next year's calendar just in the works, and we left it there. And so throughout the summer, Laura had some conversations with people just about certain holidays and certain days. And so what we did when we came back together is we invited everyone on the calendar committee to come back and have a conversation, and Angie was there, but it was a smaller group just because of the timing. I think there was actually a high school event that night. But together we made a few revisions to the calendar committee with Don and Laura's support, and that's what you have here is where we're looking at that holiday around Thanksgiving with that professional day, as well as in January that people spoke of before.
Just a quick comment. The original committee had looked at our staff development days in January to do the 23rd and the 24th, the end of the week of Martin Luther King weekend. And so we really tried to look at the sensitivity of Martin Luther King holiday, and so rearranged those staff development days to the 17th and the 20th. Okay, is it exactly what we would like to still have? We still have a teacher work day on that 20th, but we felt it was much more appropriate to have the 17th and 20th off as no school days for the kids, as opposed to the 23rd and 24th as having no school days off for the kids and having school on Martin Luther King Day. And so that's where we ended up. We have a calendar that has X amount. We start at a certain point in time. We try to end at a certain point in time. We try to provide as many opportunities throughout the year as we can. And so that's where we ended up on this one. We're going to start our calendar committee for the 2021 year in December. And so at that point in time, we're going to look at the whole calendar and really come up with suggestions. Is there a way to not only have Martin Luther King Day off for the students, but is it a way to have it off for the entire students as well as the faculty of the district? The other one has to do with Wednesday of Thanksgiving. And so before we had Thursday, Friday, and then we had the Monday, December 2nd as a teacher workday. Okay? And so just for what makes best for kids, we'd said, let's do the 27th as the teacher workday and no school on Thursday or Friday. That 27th, the day before Thanksgiving, is the most traveled day in America. And so for us to have school, knowing that 25-50% of the kids are going to be gone because it's the most traveled day in America, didn't seem like that made sense. So we're proposing teacher workday on the 27th, no school for kids on the 27th, no school for anybody on the 28th and 29th, with the idea that when we go forward in December, when have the calendar committee in place, we're going to look at the whole gambit as well. And so can we look at that December 27th as a no school day for everybody, because it's a travel day not only for kids but for teachers as well, and for faculty members. The same way with Martin Luther King Day, is there a way that we can do some things for the entire staff as opposed to just for the students? So that's where we're at. So take it away, ladies.
I guess I have a couple of comments, questions, whatever. So when we looked at this last year, I'll be honest, I did think it was ridiculous to give us the Monday off after Thanksgiving. That's a sidebar. But as we look at this, I remember several years ago, we used to do 2 days off in October, kind of that middle of October, and I believe those were professional staff days. I mean, as we're looking at trying to adjust this to accommodate that, I guess I'd like to see some thoughtful effort go back into that, and allowing for everyone to have off for Martin Luther King Day. But again, to reiterate, students are off. That is a teacher and staff work day, so that we're all on the same page. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. A couple of other questions. Do we build in any days for snow days? So what happens on this calendar if we have, a terrible winter, which we're all hoping we don't, and we have 4 snow days? What happens here?
I can address that. So we have, the high school is the shortest. They have the least amount of extra minutes, but they have 2.9 days. And so really, if we were to have 3 snow days, we're good. We may have to adjust on a professional day or on a day looking at the calendar if we had 3 snow days, but the likelihood we haven't.
Okay.
But we do have snow days built in. It just is that the high school, it has the fewest amount of extra time built in their calendar. So that's where we go off of as far as extra days.
Oh, okay. So probably not ever a crisis that we'd have to go past June 4th on this particular calendar at this point.
Correct. And if we were to, let's just say there was 4 snow days, then we would have a conversation and come back together and say, what is the best, schedule change we could do? It may mean that we don't have a professional day on June 5th, but that's a student day. So that's
Sure.
what some people have done if they went over the snow day limit.
Or you can add extra minutes to a day or something, can't you, as well? Okay.
Yes.
So,
And if you want, I can address the October piece.
sure.
I think it was over 5, 6, maybe even 10 years ago. Laura can jump in. As educators, we had teacher conferences,
Yep.
and so that was always the end of October. We no longer have that as a professional organization. So in the past, there used to be conferences, a reading conference and stuff like that we could go to for our own professional learning, and we don't have that as a profession anymore.
Okay.
And so if we were to have 2 days off, we would just have to count minutes for students in instruction 2 other days. And so here what we have in October is the purpose behind the 1 day is for building schools to look at their school data and for teachers to write their student learning objectives and to plan and make those action plans for their classrooms or their kids, whether it be this class or their student learning objective group. And so the day is there with purpose, but years ago we did have 2, but that was because of the professional conference.
So you're saying that conference is no longer available?
Correct.
Okay.
Two real quick comments. One is that when you look at the calendar, there's 2 things you have to look at. One is the minutes required for attendance in the state of Wisconsin. So you have to meet that in the calendar, and we can make other adjustments. The other part is the contracted amount that you have through your contract and teacher days. And so you can, there's no question that we have to meet the number of hours for the state of Wisconsin. But if the board says, rather than 9 staff development days, we want 8 staff development days, and we want one more holiday, that will have no impact on the Wisconsin requirement because we're meeting those above and beyond. The October Day, the Wednesday, the Martin Luther King Day, those are all part of our contract as far as when we want people at work for staff development. And so there really is twofold on that one. One is Wisconsin, and we're okay with that. The other one is part of just our agreement as to how many staff development days we want our teachers to put in throughout the school year.
Did we always have the Monday after spring break off? Or is that,
No.
yeah, that's a good point. Is that Easter?
Yeah,
That's
it's
Easter
just the
Sunday on the
12th.
12th? Okay, any more questions?
Would there be an option if Monday, am I looking at this right, Monday the 17th is Martin Luther King Day, is that right, in February?
No.
January 20th.
I'm sorry.
January 20th.
20th.
Okay. Why wouldn't we just choose a different Monday for a teacher workday instead of the 20th?
Well, that's what I was trying to get to. I'm sorry. That's what I was trying to get to with the October date. Why couldn't we go back to 2 days off in October, the 17th and 18th, and look at 2 professional staff days, and then give staff January 20th off as a holiday? And when we're referencing January 20th, that's January, this is hard for me to say, that's January 2020. Yeah.
20.
Because we're looking at the 1920 calendar, not this coming up January, just for those at home following along. So.
And you can do that without any problem. The question is, if you take another Monday off, then you've eliminated one of your snow days. Because the kids have to put in X amount of days.
I understand.
And so you can eliminate one of your teacher work days, but you can't add another day off without doing one or the other, because otherwise you, now rather than 3.5 days, you have 2.5 days of snow days. Okay, just, and that's the bare minimum of what kids need to be in class, not the maximum of, so there are districts that might have 8, 10, 12 extra days based on their hours that they put in. And so that's the difference.
The other, currently, like this year, the teachers have off the students are off the 2 days in January for 2018-19, so January of 2019. Those days this year are utilized as, one is for professional development. We'll have another data summit on that day. Nope, yep. Just verifying. That is another data summit day, so they'll look at the progress that their students have made and set plans going forward, review their SLOs. It is also a time for our elementary teams that will be having professional development while our high school has an exam period, and they have some record keeping at the end of that exam period. So the end of the semester exam period. So that is the utilization of those days for the 18-19 school year. And we have not yet mapped the plan for the 19-20, but that is one way that they would be utilized as staff days currently for the 19-20 school year, if we have the 2 days.
There are other days as well. We don't recognize, we recognize Veterans Day, but we don't take it off as a holiday. We recognize President's Day, but we don't necessarily take it off as well. We recognize Columbus Day. Those are all holidays. I'm not saying they're more important ones, but the key is, as we build the next calendar, then we truly want to look at everything. What's best for kids? What's best for teachers? How do we come across, make sure that we get the right amount of hours in for the kids, as well as the opportunity for meaningful vacation time, and go from there. And so that truly is the key element. I'd like to, if I could, I'd give everybody off Wednesday of Thanksgiving tomorrow, just because it makes sense. It just truly does. And we could do that, but it really becomes, how are we gonna make up that day that we gave off on Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
As I'm looking at this calendar, I don't really see how we could give everyone that day. I would love to see everyone get Martin Luther King Day off, but I don't, unless we extend the school year by another week, I don't see how we could possibly do it, because right now we're getting Labor Day off. Everyone expects that. We're getting Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving off.
Day after Easter is off.
The day after Easter is off, yes. And for Christmas, or that holiday, we don't want to cut into that first full week.
But you have that like weird day in March 2nd. I mean, I get it, it's probably the end of a quarter. Is that what it is? I mean, like, what is the March 2nd?
It's the end of the trimester for the K through 6 schools.
But that is just the same as January 20th, where the kids don't have school, but the teachers have a professional day.
And what we do, like Laura said, is one level will have professional development while the other one has like grading and assessing time, and then we flip that so that everyone gets the same professional development opportunities.
As we go forward, one of the things we really can look at, do we have the right amount of professional development days? Can we do one more before school or whatever, so that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish and still give some days off for our faculty during the school year, okay? And that truly is a big picture discussion. You know, every day that we have, we're doing something on it. It's not just a whatever, but can we eliminate one of those days and do something before school, before after school? How does that work, so that we can try to provide faculty with some meaningful days off and still accomplish what we need to accomplish?
And another little piece, like when you talk about maybe giving that day, but then extending the school year, another important part was the timeline for graduation for high school. So there was another piece of that. If we put in all of these wonderful, pieces that we wouldn't want all those days off, there's also that timeline of graduation. So that was a piece that was important to the high school.
I move to approve the start and end dates for the 2019-2020 school year, September 3rd, 2019, and June 4th, 2020, respectively. All right, we got a motion by me and a second by Ken Schmidt. Any further questions, discussion? Appreciate all of your committee's hard work. I served on this committee for a little while, and there's a lot that goes into it. So thank you for putting the committee together and doing it that way. And please pass along our thanks. Tiffany, did you have something?
I just wanted to thank your son and the SEED Environmental Organization and such for bringing this to our attention, so that we can, look towards this. Oh, daughter, I'm sorry. Your family, right. Yeah, I so thank you for doing that for us this evening. It's important. Yeah. All right.
And just to be clear, this is Martin Luther King Day of 2020.
Yes, we're out ahead. And like Don said, we will be forming another committee, and so rather than having a calendar like 2 years at a time, we're going to always be out like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So we'll be back later on this year to talk more.
What is are the students off from Martin Luther King Day in 19?
Yes.
Oh, they are.
So it's a
For this-
professional development day. So
I
that'd
think
be
there
like
is-
this coming up January.
I think so.
I just have this in my head right now, so I'd have to double check, but I can let you know.
Okay.
There's so many different
It's
calendars.
like when you're talking that far away, I'm like, what?
Any more questions, comments? We okay? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to our second reading of revised board policy 345.4, promotion, placement, and retention.
So this policy was revised earlier this year to separate out acceleration, but we never brought this forward. And we reviewed it at policy committee, and then policy committee brought it forward. At our last meeting, we had the first reading. Are there any additional questions at this time?
Seeing none.
I move to approve revised board policy 345.4, promotion, placement, and retention.
All right, motion is second by Nancy, motion by Chris. Any questions, comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. And we'll move on to certification of the 1819 tax levy.
So as you know, during the Board Committee of the Whole, the budget was reviewed and the process to determine the recommended levy amount explained. As a result, the 2019 levy is being presented and recommended for approval. The total levy amount is $39,174,600, which equates to a mill rate of 7.97. A 5-year comparison of this shows you that our mill rate continues to decrease for the district. And the primary drivers of the levy amount increase are the private school voucher program costs as well as our state aid decreases. The West Bend School District remains consistent with its tradition of being fiscally responsible to its constituents by maintaining the lowest possible mill rate while providing the highest quality education possible to all of our students. And what you're looking at right now is the 17-18 equalized levy mill rates, and this is per the DPI website. So you can see K through 12 districts, the state average mill rate is 9.79, and last year West Bend was 8.15. And as a reminder, the 18-19 proposed mill rate is 7.97. Any
All right.
questions or?
Any questions?
Just to clarify one more time, Karen, you said it's the increase in private school vouchers and the second factor contributing?
Was the decrease in state aid.
And can we predict next year our state aid going up or down there in terms of your budget formula?
I mean, I can work through that. I haven't gone that far yet, but that is something that we're actually going to be working with Baird to implement the Baird spreadsheets. And they have the ability to help us to utilize our past trends and to project based on our current experiences. So we're going to implement that for the West Bend School District so that we can use that to not only help us to strategize, but to help us to do those projections and present them to you.
I know that's probably the
absolutely.
challenge. We know our private school vouchers have increased over the past 2 years, but it seems like that state aid.
Right, and the state aid, again, has a lot to do with the equalized value. So, and with West Bend School District being a high property value per member, that puts us in that above the second tier in which the aid is equalized and our additional costs end up costing us $1.15 per dollar spent.
Just a quick comment, based on the election in another week, and both candidates have suggested more funding for education for the next 2 years. And so I would anticipate that our state aid revenue is going to increase a little bit based on that just overall general allocation. But I caution that we look at that because we truly have declining enrollment, so there's that factor involved, plus our assessed valuation continues to increase at a rate higher than the state, and so that part will continue to be there. And so the growth that we get next year in state aid truly is designed to maintain the programs that we currently have, teacher salaries, insurance, all the different benefits that go with that, and not necessarily for us to get caught up on the fact that we're fell behind this year. That's my prediction. We're either going to lose money in declining enrollment, or we're going to have declining enrollment and we're going to lose it up on top. And so that's not a positive outlook. That best case scenario, we're going to gain some more money, but we're going to gain it, and we're going to use that for the expenses that we need to have just to maintain our quality program, not to catch up on where we fell behind this year.
Yes.
Still is a mystery to me how we could have received $200 per student in additional state aid this last year and still end up with this problem. It just 1.2 million, I think, or something, or more than that we got in addition. And it just, I understand all that business about the increase in the property values, and then the state aid decreases and so on, but that's a lot of money to all of a sudden vanish, so to speak.
Okay, but correction, it's not 1.2 million. You're saying we received an extra 1.2 million, but the state took away 671,000 and some change in the, help me out, don't remember.
Harmless.
Hold harmless. So if we're going to throw out numbers, let's make sure we're using correct numbers. It's a difference of 670,000 versus 1.2 million. There's a different number in there. 1.2 is not the number.
And the vouchers we paid out were an additional 400,000 more this year than last
Over
year.
last year,
So
yeah.
already that math is surpassing the 1.2 million.
Any other questions?
I move to certify the property tax levy for 2018-2019 to provide revenue for district operations.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Approval of the 18-19 budget.
So the budget was developed based upon the recommended levy amount. Given the certification of the levy, I will now review the final budget with you. So for our Fund 10, which is our general fund, the revenues budgeted are $71,999,298. Expenses, $73,469,091. The general fund expenditures, the general fund revenues, of those for Fund 10 again, state revenue represents about 51%, property tax revenue 44%, and then all others 8%. The key drivers, again, are the declining enrollment impacts on the revenue limit. Our average students declined, our average FTEs, 81 from last year. The private school vouchers increased for a total of 940,417 for this year. And our state aid decreased, and again, this is due to the equalization. General fund expenditures, instruction represents approximately 48%, support services 35%, special education 10%. Oops. And the key drivers here are again, the private school vouchers. So while we get that revenue in for the $940,417, we have to pay that out. CPI and benefits increases. Our transportation costs have increased. Workers' comp insurance. The one-to-one computing, this is the 5th grade Chromebooks. And then software for district administration to make sure our software is up to date.
Can I just, on this page, the insurance, the workman's comp?
Yes.
Where would we see that on the budget adoption sheet?
That is,
And then I guess my other question would be our mod rate. I know that was something that was always emphasized, that if we can bring our mod rate down, then that decreases our workman's comp.
Right, yeah, and our mod rate is up, we did have a few large claims, and that drove the mod rate. So we're already working toward that declining mod rate.
And that's okay if you don't see it. Okay.
Yeah, and I can get you the exact line and amount. The Fund 27 and Fund 29, again, these are two of the funds that zero out. Head Start is the Fund 29 that is primarily for low income, and Fund 27 is our special education. So if we do not have enough revenues to cover those, it gets funded out of the Fund 10 general fund. Fund 38 and 39, again, this is our non-referendum and our referendum debt. The non-referendum debt was primarily for the McLean and Green Tree remodels, and the referendum debt was Silverbrook and Badger. Capital projects. So Fund 41 is the working capital. Fund 46 is the capital projects, and again, that is restricted for 5 years, so we cannot withdraw any funds from that until July 30th of 2019. Fund 50 is our food service. Again, that's pretty self-sufficient, so we get state and federal aid for the food service as well as the revenue from the sales of the breakfasts and lunches to students as well as employees. And then Fund 80 is the community service, and we are working closely with DPI as well as our community partners to ensure that we can appropriate those funds according to the requirements of DPI as well as to the benefit of our community. So West Bend School District continues to be committed to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers of our district. We are working to manage costs so that we can provide the highest level of educational services to all of our students. Questions?
Great. Any questions? I move to approve the budget for the 2018-2019. I'll try that again. I move to approve the budget for 2018-2019 to provide for continued district operations, just as it's written.
I second that.
Second by Kurt is your name. Any further questions, discussion?
If I may?
Yes.
I approve of most of the budget, but there's one point I had questioned, and I still do, and that is the structuring of the compensation increase for our academic faculty. Could have gone along with the amount, but how it was structured is another thing. Because I'm just still concerned about how that's going to impact us in the future. And I guess that I just don't want to see us end up having to have an operational referendum. If we go back to what happened like 10 years ago, it could happen. It can happen. And I'm just concerned about that. So that's why I'd be voting no.
Well, and I think Ken raises a good question. We know we had the concerns voiced regarding the 17-18 scorecard. Where are we within this budget for the 18-19 scorecard? Is there something worked into this? Or what's the communication to our teachers regarding 18-19?
Dave will come up and help to address that.
I can help answer that question. The plan for 18-19 is to follow the basics of the teacher framework, the different levels that people can work their way through, but before the end, and not use the scorecard at all. We already did our increase for this year for the 2% increase for employees, and we're going to follow that. And then actually starting in November, we are going to start looking at the framework and we'll hope to come to you with a proposed revision of that. Not a totally new one, because it's really not, there's some really good parts there, but a revision of that. Our hope for that is early spring.
So that'll be in place for the 1920 budget.
1920, for 1819, all we have budgeted is the compensation that was already
The 2%.
That's all, yes.
So has that been properly communicated to our staff? Because this is not the first time we've heard that, tonight, we heard that this has not been properly communicated. I mean, I have multiple questions on the comments, so I guess now I'll bring this up, and if you want to tell me it should be during benefits, correct me. But I would like to see a full report on the stipends that our veteran teachers feel that they are due. I want to know the number of what those are. I want to know how much the total amount would be. I want to know when they should have been paid and what parameters that they were given to meet those type of things.
Okay, I didn't write all that down. Can I get that?
Oh, I'll be happy to send you an email with all that, no problem.
Okay, yeah. And I'd just like to point out one thing. I keep hearing the term veteran teachers. The framework we have does not pay the scorecard only for teachers that have worked here a certain number of years. The scorecard applies to every eligible teacher.
Okay.
It's all but the brand new. Oftentimes it's here, well, our veteran teachers haven't got, it's every teacher, not just.
Okay, so I'll reframe that
just
then.
wanted
So
to-
all teachers who should have been paid a stipend, I'd like to know the total number of what those stipends are, the dollar amount of those, when they should have been paid, what were the parameters of such payments? Deb, you getting all that? And, I'm sorry, I feel like there was one more. Oh, when or why was it not communicated to, I guess, when and why? If you say it was communicated, I want to see a date and proof that it was. And if it wasn't communicated, why didn't we let teachers know that that wouldn't be part of their future?
We will get that for you, but just so you know, it goes back before the 17-18 school year.
Totally understand. So, I mean, as best that we can pull records together, we need
And we
that
have those, we can
information.
do that.
And just a quick comment, Nancy, I will say that it was not communicated nearly as well as it should have been last year. I mean, that, there's no question that I'm not disagreeing with anything that they said, that it was not communicated very well. We've looked and you know, we tried to come up with where the dollars went and why they went to where they're at, but there's no question that for last year's scorecard, we could have done a better job of communicating last year than we did. For not blaming anybody, it just didn't happen. This year, I believe, certainly the word is out that they're not using the scorecard. There will also be another note coming out from HR soon, talking about all the different things and re-emphasizing that the scorecard is not in operation for the 18-19 year, that compensation was already paid for in the 2% across the board compensation for everybody, okay? But 17-18, it didn't get communicated as well as we would have liked it to have gone. Okay, that doesn't make it right or wrong, that's just reality. For next year, I believe there's no one that doesn't understand that it's not there, but even if they do, we will communicate again soon that this is where we're at, that we're in the process of looking at the scorecard mechanism again, and ask for some volunteers to help us with that process. But along with that, there will be no scorecard compensation for the following year, 18-19.
So that will, we're assured that will be some kind of letter or memo that goes to each staff member.
Yes, I actually have it partially written already. My goal is to have that done actually by the end of this week, because it's going to be part of the invitation to staff, because we're going to start hopefully meeting in the middle part of November to talk, our first meeting is middle part of November, to start talking about the revisions to the framework.
Okay, so I guess I'd like to see the board CC'd in on that communication, so we're assured that it was received.
That will be done.
I just want to clarify my comment when I talked about structure, how the 2% was structured. A portion of that could certainly have could have been applied to the base, but not all of it. And maybe half of it to the base, and then the other half could have been issued as a bonus stipend, whatever you want to call it. But to apply it to the base 2% across the board. That commits us 2% across the board. Audit an item. So.
Okay.
I just have one.
Sure, Kurt.
Even additional comment. Just with being new to the budget process, I know a considerable amount of time was spent. This was, so I don't know, the words, this was supposed to be a win for trying to keep our good quality teachers, providing them a raise and recognition. Whatever we have to do to communicate or address issues from individuals that came today, I think we're going to try to do as board members and all. We were fortunate on the tax side to see a property value increase, in my understanding, so we didn't have to ask the taxpayer for more money if their property value didn't go up. But we did ask the taxpayer for more money this year because of some state funding even going down. So we're trying to, again, maybe your last slide, make it a win for everybody, but I want to say a priority was put towards recognition of the great teachers we have in this district.
Good. Any more questions, comments?
I'll just say one more thing, because I recognize that our revenues for 18-19, our spending exceeds our revenues. So that creates a problem, which is why we're going to fund balance. And I know from that WASB finance meeting that Ken and I attended, pretty much have three choices, and one is an operational referendum. We're not interested in that. Another is the fund balance, which is fine, you know, for this particular reason, and we had some left over from 4K that we never tapped, so we could really justify doing that, as you said, Kurt, to support our staff. But then the third, moving forward, is really looking at people in programs, and I know, Mr. Kierkegaard, you're tasked with a pretty difficult challenge for 1920, bringing us into that place of balance where we don't have to dip into our fund balance or ask more of our taxpayers and such. So communicating with the board, we know this is a declining enrollment for probably 8 years. This isn't something new to our district, and when you have a period of declining enrollment, the best thing to do is to make small cuts along the way. At this point, because of what we've been given, we're having probably to look at some larger cuts come the new year. So I just want to acknowledge that this isn't something that we're looking to repeat in the next few years. We understand there's a problem here. There's more spending. We need to find that balance, and it goes into not a whole lot of options. So I appreciate the time you've put into it.
Any more comments, questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-1. We will move on to discussion of addition of product innovations as a new high school course beginning next year.
I will apologize up front that Allie Holzer, who is the teacher who put forth this proposal, is not able to be here tonight. She did have a former commitment, so she's not able to be here. However, she did share with me a statement she would like me to share with the board. With the continuing need for creativity and ideas in the business world, we are proposing an entrepreneurial innovations course that would give students a unique hands-on experience learning the process firsthand. Students will work in teams to employ entrepreneurial discovery strategies to generate feasible ideas for business ventures, fully immersing in a professional culture. Teams will partner with a mentor from the professional business community who will guide students through a comprehensive product development cycle. A broad range of real-life business issues and concepts will be taught and integrated into the process. Students will experience mistakes, take risks, and learn to pivot based on market and business needs, similar to what an entrepreneur would go through. Enrollment would be limited and competitive in nature based on a submitted application and interview process.
So this course proposal came about after some work with some business people in the community. Some community leaders had a proposal and asked us some questions. We knew we wouldn't have anything to offer for this school year, but we said we would study that. Along with that, If the board approves this and we begin working on implementing this class for next year, we have the potential for a sizable donation that would fund this class future forward.
And we have met with those outside business people, as well as Darcy Van Anestein, Ralph Schloss, Allie, Tim Harder, and I have met looking at our options. We have had some conversations with schools that do have entrepreneurial classes like this. There are only, I think, 3 in the state that have programs. We have talked with one. Allie is going to visit another. There's just a lot of potential to tap into some things that are already going on at the high school, in both, not just limited to the business pathway, but also looking at all of our students in the different pathways, because when we're talking entrepreneurial, students, we're not going to limit it to just those students who have taken business classes. We may have someone in our manufacturing classes. We may have someone in our health careers who would also be interested in this, and that's why we have that application and the interview process to allow students from all different avenues at the high school to possibly be part of this.
Grade level?
12.
You said application and interview process, is that for the students?
Yes. We currently have the Healthcare Academy in partnership with Frederick St. Joseph's that Patty Noonan is very involved with, and they have a similar process where there is an application and then they interview for those limited positions. It would be something along the same lines.
We are very appreciative that we have the community support behind this, and the business leaders that have approached us with this initial idea. However, while we know we have the potential, should we have this class exist, to have a substantial amount of funding, we would look at funding through grants and other funding from the state that is specifically for business and career and tech ed, that we would utilize for the initial and startup initial costs and the ongoing.
Cool.
You may have answered this before, but how many students would this class accommodate about?
That would depend. Initially, we would be probably looking at one section, so we're maybe talking about 20 to 25 students at the most. It may start out slow. You may have 10. I know the school that we talked to, they were running, when they run it, they run 2 sections. So it's all dependent upon the quality of the students who come forward with that. You know, we may start out very slow with just a few that are interested, but we hope that it will grow.
Just a couple quick comments. It's going to be a competitive grant through the businesses, so there's no guarantee. There are several other entities that are looking at trying to cash in on the same dollars. And so it's not a done deal that we're going to get it. We hope that we are. We hope that we're going to put together a very competitive proposal. The second thing is we truly want to make sure that it's sustainable. So once the dollars are gone, do we have the ability to sustain it for long-term, because it makes sense to do that. And so hopefully we'll get the proposal approved, but then even if we do, we truly want to make sure that we're presenting something that's a sustainable long-term program.
And currently, we do have funding through the Perkins Foundation, or the Perkins grant, which would help us with that initial implementation, but then also through CTE incentive money that we receive based on the number of our students who take tests and get certifications in CTE areas. We do anticipate that we would be able to continue that support as well.
How do you get the word out to students, or what's the plan to, let the sophomores and juniors know this is coming and how exciting and what a great opportunity?
I think that one is, I think once we get it approved, I think the excitement from Allie Holzer and then other teachers to get them to talk about that, as well as our counselors, to get that information out. I think we'll also probably tap into the wonderful Nancy Kunkler to get her to get that on our website as well.
Our College and Career Center would also be involved in that, getting specifically to this year's juniors and sophomores, getting that out there so that they know. Additionally, that communication, so like Jennifer said, that the classroom teachers would look at that. So as we talk, as the communication goes out there, that this opportunity exists, a teacher who is not a business teacher may encourage students who have, so we have a biomedical innovations class. Perhaps they may be very interested in looking at creating some business based off of that.
I think it's a great proposal. Good luck.
Great, any more questions? If not, we'll look forward to approving this down the road.
Next month, next meeting.
Next meeting. Great. Thank you very much. Dave Hamelman, discussion on benefits.
This is going to actually be Dave and Don both.
Okay.
And so I think at your desk, you have a handout that shows 2019 district health benefit changes as well as insurance rates for 18 and 19 both. And so.
Right, and we prepared this there were several board members had questions about the benefits plan that was rolled out, and we wanted to answer those questions by a little bit proactively by just going through this, and then I, and of course Don too, will be able to answer any questions you do have. I started this out, I should say, with a clarification of terms. At West Bend, we use what's called a health reimbursement arrangement. This is where benefit dollars are made available when the expense occurs to assist employees with paying some of their medical expenses, deductibles, other medical expenses. The dollars are expended only after an expense is incurred and the arrangement has been made. They met the arrangement. That's different than a health savings account. A health savings account is where a organization, employer, contributes money to an employee's and set up an actual account in a bank or other financial institution, and often, and most times, the employee either voluntarily or is required to match or put dollars into that health savings account as well. So that is something that is, number one, it's portable. It belongs to the employee. They can take it with them when they leave. As opposed to, some people still think the health reimbursement arrangement, well, what is the district doing with all the dollars out there that have been spent or that are not going to be spent? The dollars were never spent because the employee didn't have the health care expense. So it's a totally different type of benefit that's available. I just wanted to start out by saying that, and if you have more questions on that, I can answer as we go through this. But there are three areas that changes were made to employee benefits this year. First is the premium increase. Last year, the premium increase was 8%. This year, it's 7.6%. And that's an average of 7.6% across all three plans. We did not, and I say all three plans, we didn't change any of the plans. Nothing else in the plan design changed. Second is the changes in what the employee HRA funds can be used for. Currently, they can be used for any health care expense. And not that that's bad, but they really are designed to be applied to medical expenses. So one way we made a decision to help in cutting the overall cost of the district expense on health care, or medical expenses, I should say, for this year, is to change that going forward, starting January 1st, to expenses associated with district-provided medical insurance plans. Now, there is one typo here that was obviously found later than I wish we had found it, but I really need you to please take out your pencil here, and where it says premiums and co-insurance there, it should be deductible and co-insurance. So please make that change. The premiums do not fall under a health reimbursement arrangement because those are pre-tax dollars already. Okay? So going forward, the HRA dollars will be available for employees to help with their deductible and the new co-insurance. And the co-insurance is the third bullet here, where we added the co-insurance. Currently, the employee, the plan pays $0 until the deductible is met, and then for the rest of that year, that employee has 100% coverage, and there's no employee expense. The only issue with that design is once you reach deductible, there's really nothing to encourage you to be concerned about health care expenses the rest of the year. And that can be, not always, but that can be an issue. So what the new plan incurs, now there is zero coverage until your deductible is met, just like before. Then, for the next $5,000 of expenses, or $500 actual employee pays 10% or has 10% skin in the game. The district still, or the plan pays 90%. It's just that the employee has 10% skin in the game for that next $5,000 or that 10% $500 expense to the employee. So yes, there is an additional expense, could be of up to $500 if an employee or any of the dependents on the plan, go through all the deductible, and then have up to $5,000, or more than $5,000, I should say, more of healthcare expense, or medical expenses in that plan year.
Dave, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. It seems to make the most sense for me to ask this while you're in the process of describing. Is that okay?
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt your
Yes.
flow here. The difference between 2018 and 2019, is that in 2018 any allowable expense? So that means it could be, as long as health-related, it could be any doctor, any network?
Correct.
Okay.
And more common example is for orthodontics, okay? For the part that, if they're on the dental plan, or even if they're not, for the part that's not covered, that could be if I need a hearing aid, or glasses, or contacts, if I have LASIK surgery. Sometimes people will, hey, I didn't have a whole lot of expenses last year, so I have some rollover dollars that I can then use the following year. And that's what some of the emails that you saw were about. So if you think about it here, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but a really savvy person, if you're on plan 1 or 2, and I have a lot of rollover dollars, that this kind of does affect me here, okay? Certainly it does, and there's no mistake about that. And it may make sense, may not, but I would certainly suggest that employee look at, plan 3 has a higher deductible, okay, a lower premium, okay, but a higher deductible and coinsurance that I could use towards the expenses that I do have in the coming year, and basically get, other than the premiums, free health insurance if I had all that, if I had that much put away into rollover dollars. So that's one way another way you can help employees mitigate the expense of this. Because I certainly, and I answered these questions in meetings with employees, because we had meetings with employees rather than just rolling this out through email as was done the past years with just a % increase on the premiums. And for some employees, their entire 2% increase could be used up of this. It's not most employees, okay, because you have to, number one, go through the deductible and then go through the 10%. Okay, so you have to have lots of dollars of expenses, and usually more than just one person, because we still have the out-of-pocket maximum, as we always have. But there are ways that you can try and help mitigate this. And one example is go to Plan 3. Again, it may not, you have to look at expenses, but one possibility is you go to Plan 3 where you have a higher deductible, but you've got all these rollover dollars that you can now use, or you can use. You're restricted to using it for rollover dollars, but that would save you then some of your out-of-pocket expenses that you could use for that orthodontics that you thought was going to be covered under the rollover dollars. Some highlights, if I can, and then
Just before you go even to the highlights, I think now you're talking about the dollar amount of
Sure.
insurance.
Go
Let's go and look at page 2 and 3 if you could, and then turn it back over to Dave. And so we have a quality insurance plan. There's no question about it, and we want to continue to offer a quality insurance plan. There have been questions in the past, what's everybody's responsibility towards insurance? And so if you look at the first column, which is the $1,000 deductible, okay, if you choose that $1,000 deductible, you're going to pay $104 a month for a single, or 17.5% of the overall cost. That 17.5% stays the same across the board. But if you go over to the $2,000 deductible, which is the most common, you're going to pay $45 a month insurance cost, which is 8.5% of the cost of insurance. And if you do a family, full family, it's $172, which is 8.5%. If you go over to Category 3, which is a $3,000 deductible, which is not uncommon anymore, but a $3,000 deductible, you're paying 2.8% of the cost of the insurance, or $14 a month for single, and $53 a month for family. So I just truly wanted to make sure that you look at what's the cost of insurance, because we do provide quality insurance at significant district expense. If you go over to dental next to it, dental is also a benefit that we provide, or you provide, And so if you get dental insurance and single, you're going to pay $5 a month, which is about 12% of the overall cost of the insurance. You know, the cost is $42 and you're paying $5. And same way down to family, you're going to pay $20 and the cost is $157. And so just to show you what the cost is, what you provide right now, you are providing a pretty quality plan and you're picking up the vast majority of the cost. If you go to that last page, it shows the exact same thing, but it just shows you what it went up. And so if you went to that category 3 with the $3,000 deductible and you were single, you're going to pay $14 a month. This next year, you paid $13 a month this year, so it went up $1. Okay, if you are a family on that same one, it's $53 this year. It was $49 last year, so it went up $4. And so, is it an increase? It certainly is. But I just want, before Dave highlights the rest of the highlights of the plan, to let you know what the plan itself cost for employees as well as for the district.
So point of clarification, the full-time rates on either of these charts, where you're showing full-time rates, wellness, no wellness, that's per month, not per paycheck for our staff.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes. Yes, these are monthly rates, correct. Okay, let me just go back to the front quickly. We'll go through this. Highlights of the plan. It's important to remember that we do have the health reimbursement arrangement. So when, like Don was just talking, there's a $3,000 deductible for Plan 3. It's really $2,000 because if you have that much money, you're going to get $1,000 back from the health reimbursement arrangement. So it's really $2,000, and so it is it still is a plan that is very competitive in the marketplace. Unused health reimbursement arrangements can be rolled over up to $9,000. So if you do have several good years in a row, you can potentially at least use that for paying anything you have like a year after that when you don't have such a good year, and basically get insurance for the cost basically of your premium, which again is a very big plus. For an example, if you play, and this is a Plan 2 example here, see the next bullet point. If you have a $2,000 deductible plan, HRA reduces the deductible to $1,000. Okay, so again, that employee has to pay $1,000 out-of-pocket expenses, and if they had a good year sometime a year before or 2 years before that and had some rollover dollars, it could be even less. And Don was talking about how this still is a very good plan, and it is. What really ices the cake on this is the next bullet point. All of this we have, and on top of that, we have a free clinic. A clinic that you can go to for most of your health care needs except for surgical, that type of thing, and specialist requirements if you need to have those. And there's no deductible. I mean, even though everything else we've all talked about, employee can still, if they want, go into the health care clinic and pay $0 walking in the door. And some people use it. Some people, we are continually encouraging people to use it more. Overall, they get extremely good reviews. And I think we're into the 6th year now of having the clinic here. West Bend is one of the first districts in the state to go that route. And lastly, we still have flex spending account benefit, which is available for anybody. You don't even have to be on the insurance plan to do this. I know some people have a spouse who has insurance, but it still makes sense to be on the plan or to use flex spending, and that's available to people. It's not a district expense. In fact, it's a savings to the district, because if you reduce your tax dollars, then you and the employee both are saving on, like, for instance, the Social Security or Wisconsin Retirement System dollars. So, and all in all, and I know there's a lot of feelings, hurt feelings by somebody, and I understand where they're coming from, that once again, you say that once again, the employees are are having to, not just teachers, but all employees are having to pay entirely for all these benefits changes and that type of thing, and it's not true. If you look at the district savings here, the change in HRA is and it's at approximately 140 to 150. That's an estimate because it doesn't happen until the employee actually goes to a doctor or has a medical expense, if you understand me there. And the core insurance, we can be exactly, that's 161,000 because we know based on previous years what exactly will, or almost exactly what will happen there. So I know some of you had some very sincere and good questions about this. Anything else that, Don, anything else before we open
Just
up?
one last comment, and that is, when we looked at the budget for the 18-19 year, and we knew that we were going to deficit spend by about $1.5 million. So we knew that our health insurance costs were going to go up. At that time, anticipated about $900,000 overall, okay? It wasn't that much, okay? It was about $600,000 overall based on all the different things. And so when came to you to talk about budget, said that we're going to try hard to come up with $300,000 that we're going to take, so that we're not spending another 300 on a deficit, rather than 1.5, it's 1.8. I don't think we're going to come up with as much savings as we would like, because I think teachers will be, all of our employees will be very creative as to how they're using their health reimbursement accounts. They're going to be very creative as some of those other type of things. And so it potentially is just going to shift from A to B, and I hope they do. I know, because if we save $150,000, that means somebody else had to spend $150,000, and that's not the intent. But we really want people to be very conscientious about our insurance. Know that everybody has to be equal players in it, so that we're all working together to try to minimize our overall cost and continue to keep a very, very high quality benefit for our employees. Because we look at the benefits, we need to attract and maintain quality people, both through salary as well as through benefits. And our benefits truly have been excellent, and I think they're still excellent, but this is a minor tweak in what might have to be down the road additional tweaks. I'm not suggesting that, but you're asking, or I'm in charge of coming up with some significant cuts for next year. We're going to have to look at a variety of different things. And so hopefully this isn't anything that we have to look at, but we have to put everything on the table.
And I would just like to add one more point to that in open questions. Is we took a very intentional and informed approach to compensation together this year in terms of the salary, the program that we asked you to approve, and you did, and as part of the benefits, part of the budget, how we could save some money this way. I mean, we could have done it this differently and gotten to the same dollar amount, but we felt it was important to provide that increase in dollars. And yes, some people are going to lose a lot of it or all. Most will not lose all of it or any or a major portion of it. Some will. Again, Don gave the example, if you're a young person or a single person and it's just you and you're very healthy, you're going to see your premiums going up $12 this year. Okay, now that's the extreme example out of the three, but that is, and there's 64 people, by the way, in the whole district on that. So there's some. But we had an intended and informed approach to how we were going to dole out some dollars and then have to pull back some dollars as well. But we thought this is the best way to do it, because not only does we were able to give some salary increases to people who had not received increases for a long time, but this time this does add expenses to some people, but not across the board. I mean, we could have just done a premium increase only, but it would have been a lot higher. Okay, and we chose not to do that. So, questions?
I don't know if it's a question as much as it's a comment. I mean, I was certainly a person who sent an email immediately asking for more information. I mean, we as board members have a lot of information that we're required to look at. I would suggest next year, and you weren't here for the prior year, so I'll kind of direct this to Don probably. We had a much more informed presentation and information so that board members could make decisions and have a healthy conversation. I'm sure it will surprise everyone, but I don't have everything memorized in my head to know the difference between the HSA and the HRA and what the percentages are and all of that information, I understand cuts needed to be made. I certainly live by a budget myself, but I do think that when we're looking at employees, it would have been nice to be able to look at some other areas where we could have said to our employees, okay, this is the last year of rollover dollars. Use them or lose them, as opposed to, hey, guess what? In January, you don't get these dollars anymore. So I can appreciate that cuts have to be made, but I don't think that this was properly, at least for me, and I'm speaking just for Nancy, properly explained and rolled out in the very short time that we had to look at this ahead of it. So I would encourage Don and Dave, or whomever's going to be presenting this in the future, that we need longer to discuss it, much more information, much more detailed, and this information should have been given to us in the meeting that we had prior. I shouldn't have had to ask for this in a board meeting. So I mean, this is just, now I feel like we're kind of being slapped in the face. I, again, can appreciate cuts, but if we're going to look at cuts and the information's going to go out that the board approved this, then the board has to be much more informed. And I realize it's probably too late now because we're moving on this path, but I would have much preferred a year to at least tell the employees, by next year, the start of the school year, that rollover is done.
So two things. One is I don't disagree at all on timing, but the other part is we didn't realize, or at least I didn't know, that we had a budget deficit until about September. So the overall component of the deficit wasn't well known in advance. And so we truly worked on that. The other part is I would disagree in that rollover dollars aren't disappearing. They still have the exact same amount of rollover dollars, and if they're creative, they're still going to be able to use those rollover dollars the way they had before. That they still can roll over $9,000 just like they could before. They still can use it for a variety of different things. They just have to be more insurance medically related, and so obviously the best scenario would have had this discussion in March and April, with the idea that we're going to make changes for the following year. That didn't happen, but I don't believe, and the way I look at it, the premium increased last year, and that's all we did last year, okay? This year, the premium increased by 7.6%. There was a change in the co-insurance. No question about that. There's a change in co-insurance. The rollover dollars are still 100% the same rollover dollars they had before. They're just limited. We are just limited as to how we can use those dollars, but still have the same $9,000 that we had last year for next year. And so, but they're going to have to make some choices. How's the best way to utilize those dollars?
Not arguing. I think those of us that manage staff know that it's really fun to come in and give staff something, right? That's a great day when you can do that. When you have to take away something, it's not a great day for anyone. So the way to minimize the damage on that is to get out ahead of it. I understand you weren't here. I'm not like trying to beat a dead horse on this one. My point is, I understand cuts needed to be made. Not arguing that point whatsoever. Okay, we all live in those kind of budgetary situations. My point is, as we look to the future and we're looking to this budget, and if we're gonna have to make more plan changes here, I want that super early so we can really look at all areas that might be affected and decide what's the best way. If we're trying to retain and recruit staff, cutting their benefits, probably not the best plan when we're trying to get new people through the door or keep our veterans or whatever we're trying to do. We have to look at ways to be much more resourceful rather than cutting into our employee area, if we can avoid it.
One of the things we are doing just to try and help now is we have scheduled individual one-on-one meetings with employees for anyone who wants to. All day today was, and it's going to be all day on Wednesday as well. And we have over 50 employees that have signed up for those one-on-one meetings, and we have scheduled on Thursday of this week an evening session, just a walk-in. Sometimes employees are more comfortable bringing their spouses, and we scheduled Thursday evening from 4 to 6:30 or 7, I think it is, and we're going to have our brokers here too, so we're able to answer questions for, sometimes, like I said, people like to bring their spouses in, so we're trying to have a time when it's later for them as well.
Good. I mean, I hope that will help. I hope people can get their questions answered, and I hope that you can explain the changes in the HRA or the HSA, whatever, so that it will be beneficial to them.
We have had an HRA here for a number of years, and most people, I think, understand it fairly well, though some obviously still don't, and I understand that.
And if I recall correctly, we asked you to look for ways to offset the 2% raise that we were trying to give.
You did.
So you could look at it as the benefits are a little harder to navigate, but at the same time, there's more dollars to be spent however the employee wishes in their pocket.
Right. And with
So-
this plan design, it is more employee focused on the employees that actually use the benefit, do spend a little more than those who don't. But it is there, a benefit that's there for everybody, which you obviously want to have.
Yeah, Mr. Schmidt?
Compared to health insurance offered in the private industry, this is still a phenomenal plan
I
for the
agree completely.
employees. This is a great benefit. Private industry, the contribution is 25%, 30%, 40%, even more. So I hope that's brought out. I would hope that when this is explained to the faculty and other staff, that there's some comparison that's given.
That
And,
was
this is a phenomenal benefit. My wife is a retired, educator, and when she was teaching, it certainly was a phenomenal benefit to have that health insurance. But we understood there needed to be a change. This couldn't continue. It wasn't fair. It really was not fair. It is a phenomenal benefit, even at this.
I agree with you, Ken. We do have to work, though, with the employees who, I know of at least one employee who has several children that max out every year because of some very serious health concerns, and this is going to cost her some serious dollars. And so I understand where she's coming from in that, but at the same time, the vast majority of employees are going to do much better with this. Are not going to, use up all their 2% raise that they just got. And it still is, I think it's still an excellent plan, even without, then on the bottom of it, you got the clinic. And we encourage people to use the clinic as much as possible, obviously, because that's better for them, and it's better for the district expenses as well.
Is it easy to find out spouses who are not employed by the district who are on the plan? The number of spouses who are not employed by the district who are on our plan?
Yes, I could get that. Certainly, I don't have that memorized. But I
No,
could get
but
that, yes.
that'd be,
Right.
that'd be interesting for me. Again, in the private sector, it's very common to have a spousal surcharge fee.
Right.
If my wife were on my plan, my company would charge me an extra $75 a month just because she's offered a plan somewhere else. I guess that's kind of what I'm curious.
Surcharge fee, yeah. The opposite side of that is I'm here and I don't take your benefit, I don't
Yep.
take your benefit, and
Sure.
am I going to get a bonus payment for that? And, which a lot of places used to do and most do not anymore.
Yep.
But, so, that's something we could look at. I would want to look at it pretty hard before we put that in place, though.
Didn't you say that there are only 64 individuals that use the employee only?
Plan 3 employee only.
Oh, Plan 3 employee
employee,
only.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I made the incorrect assumption that everyone else was themselves plus covering
Plan
a spouse
3
or
employee
children.
only. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. But as Donna indicated earlier, the vast majority of people are, about half are in Plan 2, and then about 30% are in Plan 3, and about 15 or 20% in Plan 1.
But like Joel mentioned, if we have a lot of people that they're covering their spouse and family, that's an indication that we have a better benefits here than their spouses.
Be true, yes.
So, yeah, that's proof right there that we are offering a good benefit.
I think we want to continue to offer very good benefit because we want to continue to be able to attract the best people if we can, if we're going to be an above-average district, which I think we are, and we want to continue to be.
As we look at doing this, and for next year when we're looking at cuts, can we also, and I know I ask you to do this a lot, but I think it's important for us as well as our employees to understand, what kind of plans do our neighboring districts have? I mean, are you eligible to see what their people are paying for premiums and stuff?
Yes.
So I think that would be beneficial to take a couple of key districts in our immediate area that have similar demographics, so no taking Arrowhead or someone like that, and let's look at what's happening in their districts to understand.
There are a few districts out there that have plans even quite a bit better than ours, but only a couple. The vast majority do not have plans that are as good as ours.
I think when Dave looked earlier, he found that our plan is a little over $15,000 per employee. Or per, okay,
Yes.
and the average is about 12 for school districts.
Right.
That's what the district is paying for the?
No, that's the overall cost of the insurance.
Oh.
And we're paying, depending on which plan you're on, anywhere from 98% or 97% up to 83%, depending on which plan. But our overall, that's one of the things we really had to look at, is our insurance costs are about $3,000 per employee, greater than many of our neighbors because of the plan we offer.
That's one of the things we talked about the earlier meeting when we were talking with Ken especially about wanting to address some of the variances between the employee costs and employer costs and how those factor in together. And I think we are well on the way to doing that.
I have to think that not requiring people to pay a copay at our clinic is got it right there. I pay a $30 copay as soon as I walk in the door. So eliminating that entirely is got to be a huge benefit compared to our neighbors.
It's very good. The issue is if you've always had it, and then you take a little bit away, it's a problem. Even though you're still a lot better than most, but we have to, we have to work. People are looking at it compared to what they're used to as well. So we have to work in that environment.
Any more questions, discussion?
I would just say the initial reaction that I kind of heard wasn't a surprise that teachers, staff had to pay more in premiums. We know healthcare costs are rising. They expected that. The surprise was that some of the money in the HRA that they had set aside for chiropractic, for orthodontics, for vision, for mental health needs, that wasn't going to be available. And that was the concern, that maybe this was like a very quick, perhaps knee-jerk reaction because our budget isn't where it needs to be. Therefore, we're going to save $140,000 to $150,000 annually. But does it justify the angst or the stress that's put on towards our staff? Because this was a process that really didn't involve much board discussion. I don't know who all sat together with your benefits manager and said these kinds of things are going to be considered. Here are the options that we were familiar with. The process is what builds trust, and trust is something that's been difficult in our district for a number of years, and this is a board that wants to build that, and there's just, this came at a difficult time, I think, with the budget, and I don't think the onus, when you have this deficit, I can look at disbursements and see enormous amount of dollars going to CISA organizations. I can see a lot of money going to teachers on call because maybe we can be more creative with our staffing needs. I see a lot of line items that I don't even know, K-Force or these different organizations that we're paying tens of thousands. Maybe we need to be looking at that rather than making a sudden adjustment in the HRA. And I trust that Mr. Kierkegaard is going to do that.
We'll be doing that this year, yes.
In the months to come, but it's a shame, I think, if we have to resort to this because we haven't done that full analysis of our budget and where all the other money's going.
And I agree that part of it was a little bit of, we were asked to take a look at the overall employee cost sharing of the health plan. But you're exactly right. The best way to do this is if we think we're going to need to do something, to start talking about it now, or as Don indicated, in early spring for the fall. And that would always have been much the better way. We just didn't have that opportunity this time. Open enrollment is next week. So I'm hoping it starts next week. So we did basically run out of time.
I know we've gone in, and I've shared this before, but the cost within our central office, we've gone from about 50 FTEs in 2012 to 2015 being about 66 FTEs in our central office, which has remained about constant. Those are some big changes in staffing in the central office that I definitely want our administration to take a look at when it comes to cost savings as well.
We're going to be looking, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you didn't, no.
Okay. We will be looking at that plus expenses across the district, not only staffing expenses, but all kinds of, little things that eventually add up. We made the change with our tax deferred annuity account this year, that, so we don't have, we're no longer paying that was effective October 1st, we're no longer paying $12,000 a year from that common remitter. Okay, so little things like that we're also looking at, but eventually those things start to add up.
Ken? Okay. Any more discussion? Thanks for the explanation there and the detail on that. That was an agenda item that we had at our committee of a whole meeting earlier tonight and didn't get to, so that was why we did that during our regular board meeting. The committee report was, I'll just give a quick report on a meeting that we had at 5:30 today, and it was discussing the budget, the tax levy, and revenues, expenses, that sort of thing. We were all just here for that. So we'll quickly move on to our superintendent's report.
Several quick items for you. The first one is several weeks ago, Laura and Jen Getterman, Dave Ross, and I met with several of the directors from Pathways as well as their lead teachers to just talk a little bit about the process, where they're at, where we're going. I believe that in December they will do a presentation to the board as to the Pathways program, and in January it will be the board's responsibility to either let them know that it's our initial intent is to continue with Pathways, or that we're not going to continue with Pathways, that we typically give them some advice or give them an answer in January. We are currently in year 6 of a 5-year agreement, and so last year we extended 1 more year. This year we truly need to look at the overall agreement as well as location. Mr. Ross has been looking a little bit at location. We didn't want to put the cart in front of the horse, and so we'll see how the presentation comes in December as well as what the board chooses to do in January. Jackson Village has a TIF meeting on the 12th of November at 12:30. It's strictly an informational-only meeting. They will talk about, just bring us up to speed on their current TIFs in the district, okay, or in Jackson. And so even though we have no voting rights, they still need a quorum, and one of the people on the quorum should be from the West Bend School District. And so I believe Nancy attended last year. Doesn't work into her schedule based on that time, and so they set the time. And if there's a board member that would like to or can attend, we will send your name forward. And if not, then I will represent the school district as our representative just to hear what's going on. So your call. If somebody's available on the 12th of November at 12:30, it's strictly information. They're going to give us a update on their TIFs. Anybody, let me know in the next day or two if you can attend, and if you can, we'll submit your name, and if not, we'll have somebody in attendance. Sometime in November, I think the board needs to look at a work session for the referendum. So what are your thoughts? And so it's not an action item for tonight, it's not a discussion item for tonight, but I think in November, maybe that first meeting in November, we put something on as a discussion and maybe have a special board meeting, or we have a work session in front of the second November meeting to just talk about the referendum. What we don't want to do is to get to the last day similar to what we did this year and then make a decision. So I think we want to make that decision, or you want to make that decision early on. And the last one is that our West Bend students, both East and West, will be at our next board meeting. So they typically start in November. I think they've been selected, or I at least know one of them has been selected, and so hopefully we'll have a couple new students or a couple students starting in November for our board meetings.
Great. Any questions? Our board meeting calendar, we've got the board meetings in the month of November on November 12th and November 26th, with policy being scheduled or held on at least the 12th, possibly the 26th. This Saturday is the Public School Foundation Annual Gala Fundraiser at the West Bend Mutual Prairie Center. I know several board members are attending that. That's a fun event that I know Deb Wrench puts a ton of work into as a member of the foundation board, and we'll look forward to that. And that's all I've got for the month of November. Any other questions for follow-up?
Quick question, can someone confirm the date of the December meeting? Thank you.
And then as far as the calendar, I know we have the school accountability report coming at the end of November, but we've never really received information on the state testing, and I feel like that should kind of be a separate presentation. The school accountability involves so much more. Would there be a November 12th that we could have the results from state testing, where we fall, what's up, what's down?
Jen, are they ready by then? Is that embargo off by then?
Okay. That's fine. You know, if you think that's best, it just seems like it's a lot of information, and if it was something that kind of you move into the accountability report by first sharing the state testing and assessment results, just a thought. But I think in the past we've had it 2 separate evenings, but any preference from the board?
Last year we did do them all together.
Did you? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Are you looking at it as a presentation at the board or a work session before the board? What typically have we done with that? Okay. We can certainly do one the first one and one the second one. I truly, whether it's November or December, I think you need at least an hour work session to talk about the referendum, and sooner rather than later. And you can have that at a special board meeting, or you can just tie it in like we did tonight and start it at 5:30. That's your call, but I think you need that referendum discussion sooner rather than later as well.
I would just ask that Deb send us out some dates for that. I think it's definitely important.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I will move to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C and E to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and to take any such action, if necessary, based on its discussion. Namely, a review and potential action to approve the closed session meeting minutes of October 8th, 2018, 2, the potential purchase of property, and 3, superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? That was Tommy. If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, great. We're now in closed session.